Hi, everyone. My name is Randy Purvis. I'm here tonight with our Inside Admissions for university residences. So I want to give a big welcome to everybody who's joining us so far. Really excited to get a chance to talk to you. So we're going to wait a few minutes, kind of let everybody join the chat and come in. But I see here that a lot of you are kind of chatting about where you are, and I'm really impressed. We've got Qatar and Japan and we've got some indie people here too, but I'm really excited to see everybody that's international here. So I want to address the one chatter that said something about ready for the Indiana humidity. Well, you'll get that here. We have about 12 seasons here in Indiana. Right now, we're kind of in fake spring where it's a little wet, a little humid. So maybe you are ready for the humidity. Who knows? Just make sure you're okay with curly hair because we do get the humidity here. So where else do we have people representing from? DC. You guys do have a lot of humidity out in DC. Yes, I hear a lot from our California friends that you guys have one season out there. I was just out there a couple weeks ago up in San Francisco in the Bay Area, and man, I loved it. It was beautiful. Cincinnati, Libertyville, San Diego. Very cool. We're going to, like I said, get started here in a few more minutes. So I love that everybody is chatting about where they're from. Has anybody been to campus yet? Anyone who's admitted? Have you guys actually toured campus? Trinidad and Tobago, nice. How very cool. This is really neat. All right, well, we're going to go ahead and get started. So for those of you who just joined us, my name is Randy Purvis, and I am here with University Residences tonight. So for those of you who have joined us before in the chat for these Inside Admissions events, welcome back. For those of you that are new, this is a chance for you to get some of your questions for housing specifically answered, and we're pretty excited to get started. So just to let you know a little bit about me, my name is Randy Purvis, and I have worked here with University Residences for about 8 years. I've worked in Res Life, I've worked in the housing side of things, and now I get to be the manager of guest services. So for those of you who have visited campus and those of you who might have taken tours, you might have interacted with some of our staff members. So in fact, I have a couple people joining us tonight to help answer any of your questions in the chat. We have Krista Pizzera, who is our Director of Residential Life, and I believe they've already introduced themselves, but they're in there also. I have Kenny Seldamridge, who's here with our housing assignments, so anything specifically related to housing assignments he can help you with. We also have a student, Jake Compton, and Jake is not only a resident assistant with Purdue, but he also is a tour ambassador. So you might have actually taken a tour from Jake. All right, so we've also got a couple of admissions reps in there too, Christine and Caitlin. So they're going to be helping moderate some of these questions also, and helping answer any questions that you have in the chat. So like I said, tonight we're talking about the residential life side of Purdue. And before we begin, if you have not had a chance to yet, I highly recommend checking out the residential life guide that was posted on YouTube a couple days ago. In this guide, it kind of gives a high level overview of things that we offer in housing, maybe answers some general questions. It is very informative. So if you haven't had a chance to take a look at that yet, definitely go back and check that out after we are done with the live event tonight. We're going to go ahead and take some frequently asked questions. I'm going to address some things that we get asked a lot about in housing, and hopefully we help answer some of those burning questions that you might still have about signing your housing contract, where you're going to live, when you can move in, things like that. Just keep in mind, if you don't get your question answered tonight, you can absolutely reach out to us. We'll put our contact information up and available. You can always contact our housing office at 765-494-1000, and you'll get an answer. You'll get to talk with any of our housing assignments people. You can also email them at newres@purdue.edu. And so it's NEWRES@purdue.edu. And so either way, phone, email, any way they can help answer your questions. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So one of the biggest things I think of anything you take away from this event tonight is you need to know and need to remember the May 5th deadline. The May 5th deadline is the deadline to sign your housing contract. So you've already accepted your admission to Purdue, and now you get to choose where you're going to live, either on campus or off campus. So if you've decided you want to live on campus, awesome. We do not have a live-on requirement for our students. However, we still house about 94% of the freshman class, which is a huge group of students. We have about 7,000 students just from the first year class that live with us, in addition to the other 7,000 upper class students that live with us. So in exactly 2 days, you have 2 days from now is the deadline to sign your housing contract. So keep that in mind. At 11:59 p.m., the contract will close. And just remember, 11:59 p.m. Eastern time. So for those of our friends that are in Chicago and further west, it's Eastern time. So 11:59 p.m. Eastern time. I don't think I can emphasize that enough. If you have already watched that residential guide, you'll know that if you miss this May 5th deadline, we can no longer guarantee you housing here on campus. The cool thing is that if you get your housing contract signed before May 5th, you are guaranteed on-campus housing. But after that May 5th deadline, really all we can do is really just put you on a wait list, and hopefully that something comes up and we are able to offer you a space. So please, 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 once again, if you guys can, what date is it that you guys need to sign the housing contract by? Hopefully we're all there, May 5th. All right, cool. So now we're going to go ahead and start addressing some big questions that we receive a lot for contracting for new students. So one of the questions we get a lot is asking about, do I still need to sign a contract if maybe I'm not sure I'm attending Purdue University? Well, by this point, you probably have already said that you are going to attend Purdue and you've already paid that deposit. So this question is a little tough to answer because the housing contract really doesn't become available to you until that deposit has been paid. And at that point, you can go in and sign the housing contract. So if you do choose if you do choose to sign a housing contract and you decide not to attend Purdue, you are no longer financially obligated to that contract. However, if you do attend Purdue and sign the housing contract and you decide not to live with us, you still are financially obligated for that housing contract. So keep that in mind. So once again, if you choose not to attend Purdue, you are no longer financially obligated to the housing contract, but you've already paid your deposit and that's a non-refundable fee. So really that's your amount, you're out the amount of that money. Another big one we get asked a lot in any of our admissions events, any tours, things like that, is do I get a higher priority if I sign my housing contract earlier than I did? Like say you signed it back in January when you got admitted to Purdue, do you have a better chance of getting better housing? The answer to that is no. We do not give any type of priority to students who sign their housing contract sooner rather than later. So you can sign it all the way up until that May 5th deadline, and you will still have the same priority as someone who has signed the contract way back in January. We want to make sure that all of our friends who are still deciding on what university to attend, that they get as much of a chance to get into the housing as someone who decided back in January. All right, so next question is, are you required to make a payment at the time when signing the housing contract? The answer is kinda. So you've already paid the deposit, and that's really the only payment that's needed at the time. And then once the deposit clears, like I said, that's when the housing contract will become available to you. You'll receive your first billing usually mid-July. So after you receive your housing assignments, all that, you'll get a bill in your My Purdue account that will have all your housing, your dining, and it will have your tuition bill in there. So it'll all be included in one lump sum. So just keep that in mind. There's nothing that you need to pay right up front other than the deposit that you've already paid. And I want to emphasize this again, that as of midnight on May 6th, your housing contract becomes financially binding for the 2019-2020 school year. Up until that May 5th deadline, you can go in and change any contract, any part of the contract that you would like. If you decide you want a different style room preference, or if you're interested in requesting a roommate, you can still make those changes up until the deadline. But once again, on May 5th, or excuse me, midnight on May 6th, that contract becomes financially binding for the next school year. So just so you know what is considered a signed housing contract, for your digital signature, we ask for your Purdue ID number, and you will enter it twice, and that signifies your digital signature. So if you have not entered your Purdue ID number twice in that housing contract, please go back and make sure you did that. That way it's signified that you have signed that contract. All right, so another question we get is, once you've signed a housing contract and then later decided to not attend Purdue, so going back to kind of the original question, what do you do? So you're more than welcome to still cancel your housing contract if you are no longer attending Purdue University. What you'll need to do is you need to email our housing office at urcancelrequest@purdue.edu. So it's the letters U, letter R, in the words cancel request at purdue.edu. Please include your name, your Purdue ID number, and the reason we are requesting to cancel your housing contract. And then one of our housing people can get back with you. Okay, here's a really big question. We've been asked this question a lot this year, and I am excited to help answer that. So one of the questions we get is, are you required to find a roommate before you sign your housing contract? And what type of roommate request can you make? All right, so roommates. I'm a little bit biased about the roommate situation only because when I was in college, I chose to live with my high school best friend. We lived together 3 out of the 4 years. We loved living together. We got along really great. However, I will say that when I first moved in, it was a little bit harder meeting new people because we hung out together a lot, just with the other people we went to high school with. And so we eventually met new friends. However, it was a little bit hard right at first. So I recommend just going potluck and getting a random roommate. Chances are you guys will be fine together and you'll be able to live the year and have a great time with each other. So just so you know, one of the things is that you can request a roommate through the housing contract. That's absolutely, you're able to do that. We even have a matching service through our housing contract. So you can go in and you can put in your interest, your major, what you're involved in high school, and you can find someone who's interested in those same types of things, and you can request each other in the housing contract. And it has to be a mutual request. And I'll talk about that in a second, what a mutual request means. But you guys can do that and you can put each other down and make that request. One thing I need to emphasize, as much as the May 5th deadline, is that roommate requests are not guaranteed. This is a really big thing that we want to highlight, is that you can request each other, but it's not guaranteed. And I'll say this also in terms of those of you who are interested in living in a learning community. Even if your requested roommate is also wanting to live in that learning community, we're still not guaranteeing placement. So please keep that in mind, that when you're requesting someone, that it's just a request. So going back to the mutual request thing. So if you find someone that you want to live with, that you guys get along, you think you'll be great together as roommates, you need to request each other. So make sure that you have each other's PUID numbers, but then not only are you requesting each other through the PUID number, you also have the same exact preferences listed on the housing contract. So if you've already gone in there and done your housing contract, you know that you can't actually choose a hall to live in or rank a hall to live in. You rank your style of amenity preference, as well as lifestyle preferences such as noisiness, what time you go to bed, what type of activities you do, that type of stuff. All of that has to match each other for both people for it to be considered a mutual request. So just keep that in mind. Okay, a lot of people want to know when we're going to let you know about where you live for the next school year. So you will be notified of your housing in mid-July. You'll receive your hall information, your roommate information, and where you'll be. Those will come out in mid-July. Now, part of that also is choosing a move-in time. And so that's a different question a little bit, because a lot of people think that when the housing assignments come out, that's when they can go in and check and pick a move-in time. You'll actually be notified sooner in the summer, usually around mid-June, that you can go in and pick your move-in time. So you'll get to go in regardless of whether you're attending Boiler Gold Rush, our orientation program, or not. You'll be able to go in and choose the date. If you are attending Boiler Gold Rush, you'll get to actually choose the time that you move in too. So you'll get to do that early in June. Don't worry now if you haven't received that notification yet. So just keep a lookout in your Purdue email for that to come, because you'll be able to sign in and get your move-in times there. All right, so when do halls open and when do they close for the year? We open our halls for Boiler Gold Rush participants will begin on Monday, August 12th and Tuesday, August 13th. For those of you who are not attending Boiler Gold Rush, and just FYI, Boiler Gold Rush, or what we refer to it as BGR, is our week-long orientation program for first-year students. This program is been referred to as the best week ever. It is not a required program, but it's highly, highly recommended that you attend. You get to be in a group with people that are going to be living around you. You get a team leader. You get to do lots of fun things around campus, kind of learn about the traditions and the culture surrounding Purdue, and it's a really, really fun time. So if you're attending Boiler Gold Rush, you get to pick a move-in date and time on either Monday, August 12th or Tuesday, August 13th. And what's really cool about Boiler Gold Rush is that it is down to a fine science when you move in. I have never seen them move so many people onto campus in such a short amount of time, and it's seamless and very efficient. What happens is you get your hall assignment, you pull into where you check in. Your car is swarmed with BGR team leaders, and they help unload your car, carry your stuff up to your room, and your car is ready to go and be parked. And so you're done basically moving everything out of your car and up into your room. So that's really cool. If you don't attend BGR, unfortunately, the team leaders are not available to move you in. And if you're not attending BGR, the first day of your housing contract actually starts Friday, August 16th. So that is the Friday before classes begin. So starting that day, you can move in at any point up until classes start. Just a side note about Boiler Gold Rush, if you are moving in on Tuesday and you're worried that you're going to be missing some Boiler Gold Rush events on Monday night, don't worry. BGR does not actually fully kick off until Tuesday afternoon once all the move-in times are done. So you're really not missing out on anything if you don't move in until Tuesday. Okay, so there are parent events for Boiler Gold Rush. That's a question we've been receiving. Those events will also take place Tuesday afternoon. So if you are interested in sticking around and staying in town, I suggest going ahead and looking at hotel rooms in the area right now for that time, because we do have a lot of parents that do decide to stay in town to go to some of the parent events that are happening during Boiler Gold Rush. So go ahead and you can start looking around for that. They're not required for parents, but it's a nice little send-off and a cool little celebration event that you can attend. The halls do stay open for holiday breaks for winter and spring break, spring break and fall break, but they do close for winter break. And we do have a couple halls that will remain open. So say, for example, you're an international student and it's just really not feasible for you to get home during our winter break. You can choose to stay in you can request to stay in one of our open halls. Keep in mind, there is a flat fee of $500 to stay in one of these halls over winter break, but that may be an option for you. And then the halls will open back up January, the Friday before classes begin, and then everything will be great until your finals week and exam weeks, and that's when you move out for the summer. So right now we're actually on our second to last day of exams. So we've got students moving out on campus right now, and it's busy, but it's quieting down, and it's always really eerie when our students move out for summer, because you're used to the hustle and bustle, and then all of a sudden they kind of go away for a while, and it gets very strange. So just keep that in mind. The halls do stay open for spring break and for fall break, but they do close for winter break and summer break. We went ahead and mentioned when our move-in times are for Boiler Gold Rush. And if you are attending, you not only get to pick the date you move in, but you also get to pick the time you move in. And we really, really, really would like it that you stick to that time that you picked, because we allot only a certain amount of people to sign up for those times, just to make it so it is a very smooth and seamless and efficient process. So if you log in and don't see the time or the date that you're interested in or that works best for your schedule, please keep in mind that we do continue opening slots all the time. So if you don't see the date and time that works best for you, check back in a day or two. There might be a time that opens up that works best for you. And if it gets down to the very, very close to move-in date and you still don't see the time that works best for you, you can call the housing office and they might be able to help you. But we really, really need you to go in and just make sure that you're checking back, and because there is a very good chance that the time that you're wanting to move in will be available. Okay, so we had a question from our chat, and Lisa asked, Can you discuss what happens when there's more demand for housing than available spots? There's been some bad press in the past regarding people living in basements of classroom buildings. Lisa, this is a great question, and I'm glad that it's being brought up only because we are very aware of the negative press that we had over the past year. Fortunately, this is nothing new, and it's nothing really unique to Purdue. And we do guarantee that you will have a space if you sign your housing contract by the May 5th deadline. Now, what that means is that there may or may not be, we really only know year to year. There may or may not be a very, very, very small percentage of students who gets put in what we call auxiliary housing. And so when you receive your housing assignment in July, you may receive an assignment for an auxiliary space. Chances are that you're going to receive your permanent space before you even move onto campus. But there will be a couple of students, like I said, a very small number of students that will move into a temporary location. And these are not in the basements of classrooms. They're not in gymnasiums. They're not in any places that are not spaces available for housing students. The largest space will house 10 students. And those are and they're all in our residence halls, and they're actually on residential floors. A lot of them have their own private bath. They have an RA. They're included in all the hall programming. So yes, we understand that there was some negative press last year, but like I said, this isn't something unique to us. This isn't something unique to Purdue, nothing unique to Purdue. And the really cool thing about last year's situation is that we actually had our students moved into permanent spaces faster than we have in any year past. So all of our students actually were placed by September 11th last year. So like I said, the majority of students who are even given an auxiliary housing assignment at the first, when assignments come out, don't even actually move into that auxiliary space. They will actually probably more than likely move into their permanent space. And if they do move into their auxiliary spaces, they will be moved out very quickly. And the other cool thing because we recognize that this is a very anxiety-ridden thing for a parent to have to send a student not knowing when or where their permanent space is going to be, we actually have a full-time staff member, our housing transition coordinator. The only thing that this person does during that time is work directly with the students and work directly with the parents and the families to help ease any fears, help any of the anxiety associated with living in an auxiliary space. And this person also helps the students when they get their permanent assignment. They help set up all the move, help them get from their temporary space to their permanent space. And this person is just that liaison that helps, so the student doesn't have to feel like they're doing it all on their own and they're not doing it by themselves, and they'll have people to help them. Okay, so hopefully that helped. And if you have any other questions about auxiliary housing, we're more than happy to answer them. Once again, you can give our housing office a call. All right, so Pranav had a question asking, if he was not given on-campus housing, will Purdue work with him to find housing that is affordable? It's a really good question. I'm really glad you asked that, because we actually have someone who works in our Dean of Students office. His name is Mr. Ashley Darnell, and he works with all of our off-campus leasing properties. So any of our landlords that lease properties off campus that are not considered university residences property, Ashley has these great relationships with all the landlords and leasing companies. And so while he can't recommend a place for you to live, he can actually give you a lot of good pointers on what to look for when looking for housing, what questions to ask your landlord, especially if you've never lived off on your own and don't really know what it's going to be like to pay rent or pay utilities, that type of stuff. He'll be available for you. I also want to mention one thing in additional to this. We do have free student legal services here at Purdue, and that office actually works very closely with our Dean of Students office. Well, they're part of Dean of Students, but works very closely with Ashley's office in helping students look at leases, make sure that they understand the language in a lease agreement, make sure they're not agreeing to something that maybe they don't really realize. So this is a free service to all of our students here at Purdue. So you can actually take your lease in to the office and they can look it over for free, make sure everything is good to go and that you're not signing into something that you may not be, that might not be good later down the road. Okay, next question. So Another question from chat: if you want female-only housing, how do you request that? Well, right now we have 2 all-female halls, and we actually also have 2 all-male halls. So, our 2 all-women halls are Meredith Hall and Windsor Halls. 2 all-males are Tarkington Hall and Cary Quad. You can rank those style preferences in the housing contract, so make sure that you do that. We can't guarantee that's where a space that you'll be assigned to, but you may be able to rank that as one of the first styles of preferences that you're interested in. All right, classes begin August 19th, just if anybody is questioning when do classes start. And all right, so another question about summer and winter break, spring and fall. We just learned that all of our residence halls actually will be open over break. However, there will still be that $500 fee if you do need to stay over break. One question that came in beforehand was about internships, and if you're doing an internship over the summer near the university, where can you stay if the residence halls are closed? We actually do offer summer intern housing, and not only for interns who are Purdue students and interning here in the community or with a Purdue faculty member, we offer internship housing even for students from other universities who might be interning in the area. So there is housing available. Right now for this coming summer, all the interns will be housed in Hawkins Hall. We kind of decide year by year what hall will be housing our intern program, but it is a low cost option, and you can stay for any length of time from 1 week up to, I believe it's 10 weeks is the full summer amount that you can stay. And you also get a dining plan, which is our dining dollars, and that can get you access to any of our 5 food courts that are open during the summer or any of our retail locations. So yes, we do have housing available if you're here over the summer and working in internships. We also have housing available if you're here in the summer doing summer classes. So that's available also. The big question we get is about bringing vehicles to campus. So can you bring a car to campus as a freshman? This is a kind of yes and no answer to this. You don't really need a car on campus as a freshman. I didn't have a car on campus as a first-year student. We have a city bus system that runs all of our campus loops throughout the Purdue campus proper, but it also goes to both sides of West Lafayette and Lafayette. And students actually can ride for free with their Purdue ID card, which is a really great perk and benefit. And they run all hours of the day. We even have a couple late night loops. So there really isn't necessarily a need for a car on campus if you're just using it for just average day-to-day, going to the store, restaurants, that type of stuff. We do have a bike share program on campus. We also have a car share program called Zipcar. And so you can, if you Google Zipcar, it'll let you know how those operate. But as a freshman, if you are interested in bringing a car to campus, say that you have an off-campus job or you have a reason that you need to maybe leave campus frequently during the week, you can contact parking facilities and you can actually apply for a restricted parking permit. And restricted parking permit means that you will have a parking permit available out at the Purdue Airport. So it's a little bit off campus and it's not really convenient to get to, but you can apply for that through the parking facilities. Our university residences parking spaces are reserved for sophomores and above. So if you choose to live with us every year after your freshman year, you will be eligible to purchase a university residences pass as long as they have them available. All right, so some questions about guest hours for university residences. So we do have different guest hours for different buildings. First Street Towers, Hawkins, Hillenbrand, Hilltop, Third Street Suites, and our UR Boiler apartments, which are our apartments that are off campus. However, keep in mind we don't place freshmen in those off-campus apartments, do have a 24-hour visitation policy, 7 days per week. In any of the other residence halls, the more traditional style residence halls, guest hours are a little bit different. So Sunday through Thursday, our guest hours are 8 a.m. to 2 a.m. on the following day. And then from Friday through Monday, it's 8 a.m. to 2 a.m. And 24-hour guests. So weekend hours are in effect on the over breaks too. So Labor Day, October break, those types of breaks. Okay. Another question that got sent to in advance. So I apologize. I'm reading some questions that came through. Oh, great question. So my son has had surgery on his leg and has had difficulty walking long distance. Do most of the residence halls require long walks to get to class? So Purdue is a little unique because most of our residence halls are on one side of campus, and the academic buildings are on the other side of campus. It really takes, I think, probably the longest walk that I've heard a student had to do was from our furthest west residence hall to one of the buildings on the farthest east side of campus is only about 20 minutes. Keep in mind there are campus loops that go around frequently, so they'll be able to ride the bus to and from class also. But one thing to keep in mind is we do have a disability resource center on campus, and this is a really good office to keep in mind, even if it's a short-term disability or if it's something that's more you need help with testing or you need housing accommodations, anything like that, this will go through the Disability Resource Center. So if you do have an issue with walking or transportation, mobility needs, the Disability Resource Center can actually help you work out, they can help get accommodations for that. So I wouldn't worry about that, but please make sure that you contact their office so they can set you up with some really great resources. Okay, so questions about the rooms themselves. So if you visited campus, you've noticed that the tours that we give are of our standard double rooms. And the reason we do these is because that's the most prevalent space that's on campus, are our standard double rooms. They're either air conditioned or they're non-air conditioned. About 70% of our rooms are air conditioned. And for those of you really lucky ones that'll get non-air conditioning, it's actually not a big deal at all. I lived in a hall my freshman year that was non-air conditioned, and believe it or not, that's how I met my best friends, because we kept our doors open the whole time. And life pro tip, if you have two fans and you keep one facing out and one facing into the room, it circulates the air really, really nicely in the room. So it actually can cool it down. And like I mentioned before, we have about 12 seasons in Indiana. So really the need for air conditioning might not be much at all. So we do have the standard double room. Like I said, that is the most prevalent room that we have on campus. However, we do not have a standard first year hall. So we don't have a hall that's strictly freshman students. We also don't have halls that are strictly upper class students. Our freshmen can be placed in any of our communities on campus, including our apartment community. So keep that in mind. It is one of the amenity style preferences that you rank when you sign your housing contract. And there is a possibility that you could be placed there. The really great thing about our apartment communities is that you get the residential life experience while living in an apartment. And the apartments in Purdue Village actually have a washer and dryer in each unit, which is really cool and unique to those apartments. You can also have a meal plan. You don't have to have one if you're living in the apartments. Any of our other residence halls, those meal plans are required. But a great question is asking about lofting your beds. Lofting your beds does give you a little bit more space in the room. We've seen a lot of people who loft the beds and put a futon underneath one and put the television on the other side of the room underneath the other. I recommend lofting your beds. We work with an outside company. Right now we're with bedloft.com. And so once you get your housing assignments, there will be information there on how to request a bed loft. And if you request and pay for the bed loft before a certain date in the summer, that bed will actually already be lofted and ready to go for you on the day that you move in. So you don't have to go in and build it and do all that. So what's great about that is you don't have to bring in your own loft. So if you have a family member that's a carpenter and really wants to build that loft for you, tell them they're cool, save that loft for someone else, because we can do that through Bedloft. The other thing that Bedloft offers and they can get for you is you can actually buy futons from them. So you can get a futon that's yours to keep. The lofts are rented and lofts have to be returned every year, but the futon is yours to keep. You also can rent from them micro fridges. So you're allowed to bring in your own microwave and a refrigerator. And I believe it's 4 cubic feet that the refrigerator has to be under. Those guidelines are on our housing website. But you can also rent a micro fridge unit, which is just one unit from Bedloft, and that will also be in the room and ready to go when you arrive. So just keep that in mind, that you can't have a really big refrigerator. Don't try to bring in a full-size refrigerator. First of all, it'll take up way too much space, and you're not going to have your people next door to you won't like the fact that you're using all the electricity. So please just bring in a little mini fridge. So in our rooms, we supply your beds, your mattress, there's a desk for each student, there's closet space for each student, and there's dressers, and there's lamps on the desk as also. There's smoke detectors and trash cans and all that. So if you have a question about what items that you can and can't bring with you to campus, all of those are listed on our housing website, and that website is housing.purdue.edu. One of the big questions that we get asked a lot during tours is, can I bring a coffee maker? And the answer is yes, but it has to have a self-contained heating unit. So Keurig, the ones that do the single cup, those are the ones that we allow in the residence halls. And if you're one of the lucky ones that gets placed in 3rd Street Suites, there's actually a Starbucks in the hall. So I'm a little jealous of the people that live there. Okay, so moving on, internet availability. So yes, there is Wi-Fi in each of our residence halls, high-speed Wi-Fi. We have our network is called PAL 3.0. It's Purdue Airlink 3.0. And this is what you log on to. It's a secure network that you'll log on to with your Purdue username and your password. We ask that you do not bring your own wireless router because this can help jam up our signals. So leave that wireless router at home. You don't need it. But I would bring your own Ethernet cord with you, because if you are into gaming and you want to make sure that you don't lose that signal at any point, you can plug into the hard line, the Ethernet in the room also. We also have our own cable station. We have Boiler Television, we refer to as BTV. We really love our acronyms here at Purdue. So BTV is a free cable service for all of our students that live with us in housing and any of our apartments. This year, we actually offer streaming service for our BTV's students, which means that on any device you have, you can live stream any of the shows that are playing on BTV. The really awesome thing that our students, this is the first year we've received this, so those of you coming in next year, you'll have access to this as well, is you get a free HBO Go account. So for those of you who are Game of Thrones, Westworld bingers, all that, you'll get your free HBO Go account just for living in the residence halls, which I think is super cool. And I really wish that was available when I was in school. Okay, so Carla sent us a question in advance. Do dorm rooms have a locking door or some kind of safe to lock up computers, wallets, etc. when students leave the room, go take a shower, go to the gym, etc.? Basically, besides locking the door, are there any other secure locations provided in the room for students? So the short answer is no, we do not provide those. However, we do have lots of security measures in place to make sure that not only are you safe, but your belongings are safe while you're living in our halls. We do have security cameras in each of our facilities and all the common areas and the exteriors. You do have your Purdue ID card, which you'll use for literally everything on campus. That will be your access card to the hall. So if you live in a hall that you frequently use an elevator, those elevators won't even work without your Purdue ID card. So if you're not a resident of a specific hall and you try to get in to use the elevators won't work for you. So this means that all of your guests have to be escorted at all times. So please make sure that if you see someone who you don't think lives in that hall and you're a little bit suspicious, you need to let someone know right away. But going back to the original question of if we provide that, we do not. But you're welcome to bring something in that has a safe or a locking mechanism. So you do need to make it a priority that you're locking your door when you leave the room and taking your key with you. There is a charge if you lose your room key. And it's not fun to see that charge hit your bursar bill. So make sure you're bringing your key with you and your Purdue ID card with you literally everywhere you go. You'll need to just make sure you always lock the door. And that's the best way to safeguard against any unknown people coming in the room. All right, so here's a great one. Question we hear is, how often do you need to clean the room? That's kind of up to you and your roommate. Hopefully you're cleaning it pretty regularly, but your room is really your responsibility. If you happen to be living in one of the units that has either a semi-private or a private bathroom, each hall has a different cleaning schedule for those bathrooms. So once you get your housing assignment in July, you'll need to contact that actual front office of the hall and they can let you know first of all, if cleaning is provided for the bathrooms and what that schedule is. But no, we don't clean any other parts of the room. You need to work that out with your roommate, how clean that you want to keep the room. I recommend keeping it pretty clean. But we do provide mops and brooms and vacuums available for you to check out each of the residence halls. So you don't have to bring those items with you, but they are available to check out if you would like them. And we do encourage you to clean your room on a regular basis. Also, pro tip, learn how to do laundry before you get to Purdue or before you go anywhere, because laundry is a very, very important thing to know how to do. I mean, pretty much for the rest of your life. So make sure you know how to do that. Make sure you know the difference between fabric softener and detergent. It's a very important thing to know the difference of. My roommate did not know that difference our first year, and that was not fun. So please make sure you know how to do laundry, you know the difference of sorting and all that. That's a very important life skill to have. All right, so we've had some students ask if pets are allowed in the residence hall, and the answer is yes. Fish are allowed in the residence halls. That is just a blanket. Yes, fish are allowed in the residence halls. However, we do allow service animals. We also, if you have an emotional support animal, you can also have them, you can go through the Disability Resource Center to get them accommodated for. And so if the Disability Resource Center approves you to have an emotional support animal, they will send that request on to us at housing. And we actually have a full-time professional staff member who looks through those housing requests and approves the ESAs, the emotional support animals. So if you're approved to have your ESA with you, you have to sign an agreement with it, and that animal is not actually allowed outside of your room. So unless it's a dog and you need to take him or her out for bathroom breaks, obviously that's allowed. But that's really the difference between ESAs and service animals. Is service animals are allowed anywhere on campus at any point. ESAs are really restricted just to the residential space. Okay, excuse me. All right, so here's some questions that came up from our live chat. So keep sending them in. We still have about 20 minutes or so that you can keep sending in questions. Okay, so this is about learning communities. So when joining a living learning community, are you required to do additional schoolwork while in the learning community? I will say probably. You can visit the learning community website, and we have over 90 learning communities, and they keep growing every year. We keep building more and more because we have a very high interest in them, which is really cool. The thing you need to keep in mind, though, is that each learning community has a little bit different requirement, but basically the overall concept of the learning communities is basically just getting you access to resources outside of the classroom and building more bonds and relationships with your faculty members and with the students that are taking the class. So really, if you're interested in a specific learning community, you probably should contact our residential academic initiatives office, and they can help explain. But really, they might just direct you to the website, because our website does have a lot of in-depth detail about each of our learning communities. D. Donna in the live chat asked us, if a student is admitted into the Honors College, how does that work with housing preferences? Will she be placed in an honors dorm regardless of her room preferences? So you still need to fill out the housing form in addition to the ranking your room type amenities. The contract won't be considered complete if you don't do those. So even if she is admitted into Honors College and she will be placed in the Honors Hall, you still need to complete the housing contract. That's something that happens kind of on a back end, is those students will be placed in the Honors College and residence halls. And if you hadn't had a chance yet to come to campus and see that hall, it's really cool. That's our newest hall that we have on campus, and they actually have what looks like the equivalent of the great room in Harry Potter. So I'm a little jealous they didn't have that when I was in school. Okay, Joyce emailed us asking if actuarial science majors are required to stay in Hillenbrand Hall. So Joyce, I think you're referencing the actuarial science component of our data mine. And for those of you who don't know what the data mine is, it's our brand new academic initiative, and we're really venturing into new territory here with it, because we actually turned an entire residence hall, Hillenbrand Hall, into one gigantic learning community. So about 800 students, I believe, is what Hillenbrand houses, will be part of this one learning community. And so you can be in any major, any college, and you can apply into one of the components of the data mine. And so actuarial science is actually one of the one of the learning community options. And so yes, if you are admitted into that learning community, the actuarial science of the data mine, or any of the other components of data mine, you are required to live in Hillenbrand Hall. But Hillenbrand are suites, and they have semi-private baths. There's also a dining court in that hall. There's a workout facility in that hall, and it's air conditioned. And there's lots of cool places for study and group study and private study. So yes, you are required to live in Hillenbrand if you choose or if you're admitted into the data mine. All right, so another question that was asked in the chat was, if you don't like your roommate, what can be done? Right now, that's our last question. I think that's a great question to end on, because situations come up. We know there's going to be times that you do not get along with the person you live with. You're in a smaller space, probably a smaller space than you've ever had to share with either a sibling or anything like that. And so, yes, we do recognize that there are going to be times that you and your roommate don't get along, and you may not even be friends with your roommate, and that's totally okay. So what happens is, at the beginning of the year, pretty soon after you move in, you get to have a meeting with your resident assistant, your RA. And actually, Jake in our chat can possibly give you more information on this as well, since he is one of our RAs in one of our halls. He might be able to provide some insight on what this looks like. But you will do a roommate agreement at the beginning of the year with your roommate, and your RA will facilitate that discussion. And so in this discussion, you come up with some necessities that, you both decide on guest hours for certain times, or you both decide on how long does a bowl sit out with cereal in it before it gets cleaned, those types of things. To help it, when it does get to a point maybe that you get a little frustrated with each other, you can revisit that roommate contract. We do understand that things escalate, and maybe that doesn't help all the time. So what we have is we have lots of different resources in place to help roommates get along and be respectful of each other's living environment. So not only do we have the RAs that live in each hall and each community with students, we also have full-time live-on residential life staff. So these are people who are full-time professionals. They all have at least a master's degree, and they live on site with the students themselves. And these folks get to have meetings with the students. They get to help mediate any discussions that need to happen as far as roommate disagreements. And then on top of that, we have lots of other layers of resources that can happen. So really, we anticipate things, not getting along, and we definitely have the resources to help you get along with your roommate. Okay, so I don't think I see any other questions. And this has been fun. I hope we've helped answer anything that you guys, any burning questions you might have about housing. If we didn't, please feel free to reach out and contact us. We have lots of different ways you can get a hold of either myself in our guest center, or our housing office and the Office of Admissions if you have any other questions. So I believe that they are going to put up the information about how to get a hold of us. But I'll just let you know that, once again, the housing office's phone number is 765-494-1000. Our guest center number is 765-496-0278. The email for housing is newres@purdue.edu, and the email for our guest center is urguestcenter@purdue.edu. Once again, my name is Randy, and I'm really grateful for all of you who joined us tonight. And I hope we help answer your questions. And if we didn't, please feel free to reach out to us, and we will see you in the fall. Boiler up.